Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel Rather Be Reading, and today I'm bringing to you a recent reads video. It has been a week since I last checked in for a recent reads video, and I have had a slightly more successful reading week than the past weeks. So you'll know my issues if you've been watching these videos. So I managed to complete a total of 5 books, and I DNF'd 1 book this week. So 5 compared to 1 that I completed the past 2 weeks is an accomplishment. Obviously, quite a few of those were big books that I'd had ongoing for a while, but still I completed 5 things. Very happy with that in comparison to previous weeks. So let's jump straight in and talk about the things that I've read. So the very first book that I completed this past week was The Cities of Dead by Elise Arden. So this is the 3rd book in the Casket Girls series, not trilogy. As I mentioned, I believe last week, when I picked this up and I flicked to the back, I was just checking to see how many pages were in my edition. I came to this page where it says like the epic conclusion, book 4. So clearly there's going to be a book 4. Book 4 isn't listed on Goodreads, so I wasn't aware there was going to be a book 4. But it does say the epic conclusion. So I can assume that there are only 4 books and that will then be the final book. So a little bit disappointed because I reread this and went into this hoping to finish this series, and now I'm still left hanging. This book is also quite long. It is about 630 some pages, and I enjoy this series a lot. So I feel like I've given the synopsis of this so many times recently. This is YA, paranormal, set in New Orleans. It is following the biggest hurricane the United States has ever seen. And New Orleans was basically completely evacuated, and people are just kind of coming back. So it's nowhere near as populated and crazy as New Orleans would normally be. And we're following a main character named Adele, who is coming back to New Orleans where she grew up. And this series basically deals with witches, voodoo magic, vampires, shape-shifting, all kinds of magical paranormal goodness. I really enjoy it. I really like all of the characters. I do think that each book prior to this one had some sections that were kind of slower. And this book in particular, I do think is kind of slow. We're very focused on, there's still a plot, and the plot is advancing, but slowly advancing. You're getting a lot about the characters and character relationships and character interactions, which don't have a problem with because I love all of the characters in this. This series does have a love triangle in it. I personally think it's one of the better done love triangles, but I really enjoyed this, and I ended up giving this one 3.75 stars. And now who knows how long I'll have to wait till I can get my hands on the 4th book and finally actually finish that series. So I then completed Middlemarch by George Eliot. Finally, I had been reading this book since right at the beginning of February because I was buddy reading this with Michelle from Michelle Lexi. She finished it quite a bit before I did because I fell a little bit behind with the last section. And it's funny because Michelle and I had quite different, we had very similar thoughts, but very different reactions to those thoughts. So this is a classic. It is basically set in the town of Middlemarch, and you're following several different kind of inhabitants of the town, and it's kind of like slice of life, I guess, in a way. I didn't really like it that much. I found it, so Michelle described this as being, what I wrote down what she said, one of the things that she said about it was that it's very emotionally intelligent, and I agree with that. I think that George Eliot has a way of capturing the way that characters, or the way that people interact with each other, and in this time period in particular, and the way that they respond to things and how that can then affect something this way. And I agree with all of that. But to me, I found this incredibly long-winded and overly verbose. This book is 720 pages, and we're also following several different characters and kind of like several different storylines, and I was definitely more interested in some storylines than others. The writing style of it I found hard to get through in parts, and when you're already reading a section that you're maybe not necessarily that interested in, and then it's very wordy, very over the top like writing, it's very like a slog to get through. So Michelle gave this 5 stars. I gave it 2.5 stars. I didn't hate it. Like, there were things about, like I said, Michelle and I, everything Michelle said about it, I agreed with. I just had a very different reaction to those things than what Michelle did, which is very interesting. So like I said, I gave that 2.5 stars. Definitely not my favorite classic that I've read, but I'm glad to have done it and to be able to say now that I've read it. The next book that I completed was another humongous one, and that was The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. I had been listening to this on audio for like 2.5 weeks. This is, the physical copy is like over 900 pages. The audiobook is narrated by Anne Flosnick. This is the second book in the Live Ship Traders trilogy, which is, the Live Ship Traders trilogy itself is the second trilogy in like, I think it's 4 or 5 different series that Robin Hobb has written in the realm of the Elderlings that all kind of coincide with each other. So this is fantasy. The Live Ship Traders basically follows a setting where there are something called live ships, which are basically ships that are made of something called wizard wood, that the ships themselves are kind of alive in a way. But the way that the ships become alive, or quicken as it's called, is that 3 generations of the family that owns the ship has to have died on board the ship, and like their blood kind of goes into the ship, and when the 3rd generation dies, then the ship quickens and becomes alive. And live ships are much more like powerful kind of, and can do things that other ships can't. And also the families that own live ships also have a kind of higher status. And we are following, well, we're following a lot of different things, but kind of the main crux of the plot that kind of gets it going at the very start of the first book is that we're following a character named Althea, whose father, that her family owns a live ship, and her father is dying on board the ship, and he's going to be the 3rd one. Their ship is about to quicken, and she loves sailing, loves all that life, and wants and believes that she's going to inherit the ship, because there are no boys in her family. It's just they had brothers that died in a blood plague, and it's just now her and her older sister. However, the father ends up leaving the ship to the sister's husband, and Althea's very upset by this, and like all kind of stuff kicks off from there. There's a lot going on in this series. I mentioned, I think last week, one of the things I really like about this trilogy as compared to the Farseer trilogy is that the Farseer trilogy focused very much on Fitz, on one character and on his story and his life, and you kind of don't get much outside of that. And yes, he himself has a lot of impact on a lot of things, so you still get to kind of see a lot, but it is very much like internally focused on him. Whereas in the Live Ship Traders trilogy, you're getting such a like vast expanse of stuff from this world, because you're following lots of different perspectives, lots of different characters. There's lots of kind of storylines that don't necessarily all tie in together. I mean, they all tie in together, but you're not sure sometimes how parts of it are going to tie in, and they all kind of tie in, and I really enjoy it. There's so many characters. I really love all of, and like the thing I love about it as well is there's no storyline that I'm not enjoying. There's no part that, like, when we get to that perspective, I'm like, ugh, quickly want to get through this because I want to get to like this other part. I'm enjoying all of it. I also think Robin Hobb does a great job with character arcs and character development. There was a character, I think I might have even mentioned it in one of my recent reads videos when I talked about this in a currently reading. There's a character that in the first book, and for a good chunk of this book, I really, really didn't like. But by the end of this book, I found myself quite liking that character. Had a really lot of like growth and character development. So Robin Hobb does a really great job with that. There's characters like, there's some like romantic things going on kind of at times, but not really. It's very like subplot, and like there's things that I ship even though I know that I shouldn't, because I know that it can never work out the way that I want it to. And yeah, I'm just really invested in the characters and all these stories. I will say that parts towards the end of this book got a little bit confusing. And I actually messaged Michelle, because Michelle had recently read this book, and I messaged her, and I was like, when I finished it, and I was like, wait, is this like a thing like that I thought maybe they were trying to say was happening? Is this like actually what's happening? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. But it was like a little bit confusing that I wasn't actually sure like if that was a thing. But I'm sure once I've moved on to the final book in this trilogy, like it would have been made clear that yes, what I kind of suspected was what they were telling me. Shout out to Michelle as well for letting me use her Scribd account to finish this, because I only had a week to listen to this audiobook and I didn't get it done in a week. So my audiobook expired and I would have had to wait quite a long time to get the hold back from my library. But Michelle let me use her Scribd account so I could finish it. So shout out to her. She's the real MVP of this past reading experience, because I finally got that book done. So then we move on to my DNF, which was another audiobook, and that was Girl Gone Viral by Arvin Ahmadi. This is a YA sci-fi contemporary kind of. We're following a girl who, so it's set in like a futuristic setting where technology is much more advanced than what like our technology is now. And her father was involved in some kind of tech work, like, you know, quite heavily in the tech world. And then he went missing when she was like 10, like he disappeared. And she is now, I think, like 16 or whatever. And she is very, very into all this tech world. She goes to like a tech boarding school. And there's a competition that's happening, and the winner of that competition gets to meet the head of this like tech company. And she wants to win because her father was involved with that guy, and she wants to question him because she thinks that he knows more about her father and what happened to him. I think I read about 15%. It equated to about 60 pages of the physical copy. And this isn't like one that I would like, I'm saying that like I hate and I would never come back to. It's definitely one of those ones where I don't think the audiobook was the right medium for this. I could not engage in this story, and I was very confused about the technology aspects that had been mentioned and like what exactly was happening and how it was all working. And I was just like a bit confused and I wasn't engaged in it. I'd started it on Thursday, in like the afternoon on Thursday, and expected that I could get the rest of it listened to on Friday, but I was just not motivated to listen to it. I found myself just like clicking on other random things and listening to other random, like I listened to a podcast episode and I just like listened to random like stuff on Facebook. I listened to some music, and then it was like getting late in the day on Friday and I was like, well, I'm not going to get this done today. And that's not a big deal. I could have carried it over to next week, but I was like, clearly I wasn't motivated to finish it. So I just thought, I think I'll DNF that. If I came across a copy of it, like in physical copy, I think consuming it physically, I would be less confused about all of the tech stuff. So it's not like one that I'm saying is terrible. It wasn't the right time for it. I then read Darkness Falls by Kate Tiernan. This is the second book in the Immortal Beloved trilogy, which is set in a world where we're following immortals. They're not vampires, they're just people who don't die naturally. They don't die from natural causes. They also, like, if they get shot or stabbed, they would experience extreme pain and they would have to heal and everything, but they wouldn't die. Basically, the only way that they can be killed is by, I think, beheading. I think if they get beheaded, sorry, I need to move my leg because my foot is falling asleep. If they get beheaded, then they would die. But apart from that, I just realized my neckline had got a bit crazy. Yeah, that they wouldn't die. So when we're following a character who is about 450 years old, she is living kind of a darker existence at the start of the story and wants to kind of, there's something that happens and then she wants to make a change in her life. I liked this, and I liked the first book and I liked this second one. I will say that this series is very slow. There's not a lot happening, but I don't know why, but I still just don't really mind it. Like, I kind of just enjoy plodding along with it. It is easy reading as well, and the books aren't super long. I will say as well that I noticed particularly in this one that the writing at certain points was just like a bit weird. Like, there'd be paragraphs or sentences that I'd read and then like it'd cause me to pause and I'd read that again and go, what? Like, that's a weird sentence. Like, I don't know what exactly she's trying to say with that. I feel like the series could have ended on this book. We didn't necessarily need a third book, so I'll be interested to see what the third and final book in the trilogy, like what that's all about. So this one was just okay. Like, it's not fantastic, but it was enjoyable enough, and I gave it 3 stars. And then the final thing that I read over this past week was Giant Days Volume 10 by, well, John Allison and a variety of other people. I really enjoyed this. If you guys know, have been watching my channel, you know that I love the Giant Days graphic novel series. If you don't know, this is a graphic novel series that follows 3 characters, Esther, Susan, and Daisy, as they traverse their university years. It's set in the UK, they're going to university. We follow them kind of throughout their lives at uni. I really enjoy this. I really love all 3 of the girls. I just love seeing all of their lives and all of the shenanigans that ensue. I thought there were really relatable portions of this one, because this portion of this one involves them going to like career fairs, and it kind of being that point where I think they're in their final year of university in this volume. And so it's them starting to kind of think about, and at the start of this one, like, they're just starting their final year, I'm pretty sure. And so but they're starting to think about this, going into our final year now, we need to start thinking about what we're going to do when we finish school and what kind of jobs we're going to be able to get. All of that was very relatable. And also McGraw. You guys know how I feel about McGraw. I would marry McGraw if he existed in real life. I could even accept the moustache, which normally I would find repulsive. So yeah, I just love McGraw. So that's it. Those are the books that I read. In terms of what I'm currently reading, I'm actually not currently reading anything. I DNF'd Girl Gone Viral yesterday afternoon. I decided I'm not going to continue on with that. And I finished Darkness Falls and Giant Days last night. I read those last night, and I haven't picked up my next book yet. So I don't have anything to report on the currently reading front. But we do have a bit of bonus content for this video, because I'm going to be picking from the TBR teacup. And you might be thinking, Karen, you just pulled from this TBR teacup in your March TBR, and I did. But I realized, so the book that I pulled for that was Remember Me by Sophie Kinsella, which is the book that is to fulfill the prompt of a book with a mode of transportation on the cover. So to give you a bit of background, just in case you don't know what this is all about, I can try to complete every year the Around the Year in 52 Books challenge, which is a challenge that has 52 different reading prompts. And most of those I can check off like just naturally throughout the year with my reading, but I took note this year. I went through, and all of the prompts that I wasn't sure that I would just naturally pick up a book that would check it off, I specifically went through my TBR and allocated a book to it. And then all of the ones that were a bit further down my TBR and I wouldn't like get to necessarily this year, I put into the TBR teacup. And so this week, like I said, I picked out Remember Me, sorry, for this month. And I realized when I was editing my TBR that Bad Bachelor by Stephanie London, which is one of my NetGalley reads, has 2 taxis on the front cover, and so that I can use that book for that challenge. And so I decided to redraw for this month, because I really want to focus on getting to the books that I won't, like getting to the challenges that I won't naturally manage to check off this year. So I'm redrawing. I think that I'll end up getting to Remember Me probably later in the year, because that one's actually not super far down my TBR. So we're going to redraw and pick something new from the TBR teacup. So let's pick something out. Okay, I've got one. I once again don't have my laptop here, so hopefully I know whether I've already completed this challenge or whether I need to read this book or redraw. Aha! So this one, okay, so the challenge on this is a book with a place name in the title. And the book that I marked down for this is Death Comes to Pemberley by P.D. James, which is a book that I've had on my TBR for quite a while, and I've really, really wanted to read, because I believe this is a book that is set post the events of Pride and Prejudice, and it involves a murder, I think. And that just sounds so right up my alley. The thing that I wasn't sure whether it was a bit of a cheat was whether I could use Pemberley as a place name. Pemberley is obviously a fictional place. It is Mr. Darcy's estate from Pride and Prejudice. So I'm going to stick with this for now. I'm going to put this on the TBR. Let me know in the comments down below whether you think Pemberley counts, or whether I should have to pick something that's a bit more like common, like Paris or London. Work if Stephanie London's name was in the title, but it's got to be in the title. So yeah, let me know whether you think that that's cheating. If you guys comment and you think, no, I should probably pick something, like try to find something that has an actual place name, then I could redraw again next week. But let me know what you guys think. Otherwise, this will be going on my TBR in place of Remember Me by Sophie Kinsella. So that's it. That is all I have for this video. I would love to chat with you guys in the comments down below if you've read any of these books, if you have any thoughts on them or how your reading week has been going. Let me know your thoughts on that prompt as well. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. That is all I have for this video today. Bye guys.